Hello, Gen Genies. Before we get started, Rich and I want to let you in on some exciting updates for our Patreon subscribers.
Patreon is a site where listeners can pledge a small monthly amount, either $5 or $10, to support the cost of bringing you your favorite podcast.
All patrons get early access to new CutOff Jeans episodes before they're released to the public.
And along with our undying gratitude, you'll also be able to join our special patron-only Facebook group.
But the most exciting new perk is exclusive access to essays I'm writing from my upcoming memoir. And you guys can help me be editors.
New Patreon supporters will also get a shout-out on the podcast.
Rich and I enjoy bringing you the CutOff Jeans podcast and would mean so much if you would consider supporting our labor of love.
Just go to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast.
Thank you all so much, my Gen Genies.
And now, on with the show.
Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip, hip, hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Jeans.
Welcome to CutOff Jeans, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson, and I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
And I am Richard Castle, the co-host and producer of the podcast. How are you, Julie?
I am bursting with fruit flavor.
Well, you know, your hair is a nice color. It's a kind of a fruit color.
Thanks.
I love it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I have a little pink action happening in the front because we all know how easily I get bored with myself.
Juicy fruit.
Yeah, that's my favorite gum.
A friend of mine posted the other day that he thought that LifeSavers was candy that didn't live up to its promise. And I said, well, then don't get me started on sugar daddies.
Oh, very nice. That's sitcom material right there.
There you go.
Or fabulous musical. Hey, is your musical still running?
It is. It's running for another week and a half. I'm going to actually leave. I leave next week to go for the closing two performances, and I'm very excited to go back and see it and see everybody and talk about the next one that I will write for this theater company. So,
do you have anything in mind?
I have 3, possibly 4 pitches that I have prepared. Oh. So, but they've asked me to write one. So it's just a matter of picking which idea they like, and I like them all, so I could write any of them. And
can I request that you write a part for me?
Oh, of course.
All right.
Well, you'll end up doing all the demos.
I'll sing the whole damn show anyway.
I think I'll just write a one-woman show for Julie.
Yes, called CutOff Jeans.
So tell me what's going on in DNA.
Okay, well, I want to start with this. We had, those of you who are in the CutOff Jeans private Facebook group, you would have noticed a couple of posts from listener Chandra or Chandra. I'm not sure which one it is, but she gave me permission to say her name. I'll say Chandra Marsky. She did a post a few days ago that said, I'm a longtime listener, but first-time poster. I love the podcast. I've even become a genetic genealogist because of my search. Today, when I get home, my birth father, DNA proven, will be waiting for me at my house with my birth mom, MPE, who raised me. We've been talking online and on the phone for 7 years, but never met. I've actually moved to Ohio to live near my father's siblings and my cousins, all of whom I've met and spent time with. He and my mom have become friends again because of our connection. I'm so nervous. I thought that if anyone else would understand how I'm feeling, it would be the people in this group. True. Yes. Wish me luck. I'll update you soon. Thanks again for the wonderful podcast.
I saw that, and I thought, oh my gosh, I was so touched that she felt comfortable reaching out to our podcast Facebook community to share that because, you know, we're a good group of people.
And it's a safe space, too.
Exactly.
A lot of people post things there, including me, that they would not post publicly for fear of retribution and what have you, although I don't think she's going to get a lot of retribution.
No, and I think that she probably found the camaraderie and support there that she hoped for. You know, because everybody is so nice on that in that group. So
yeah,
anyway,
it's such a great group.
So go on.
So then, a few days later, update from my last post about meeting my biological father. Sorry, it's been a few days. He is great. Everything is going great. I'm kind of in shock right now because today he and my mother told me that they are in love again and they are getting back together.
That's crazy.
This is like a movie. Yeah, that is Hallmark Channel material right there.
Right?
Amazing.
Who does that?
Julie Dixon Jackson. Well, people in Hallmark and obviously Chandra's parents. Julie Dixon Jackson and Richard Castle, I will probably have a great story to tell you once I'm not in shock anymore. The door is open anytime, Chandra. I feel so disconnected and flabbergasted at this point, understandably. I don't know what to do with my feelings. Yeah. I love how open she is just about that little fact.
Yeah.
For the layperson or somebody who does not understand what it's like to be an NPE or an adoptee and is not nearby to the situation, the first reaction is always like, that's great, that's wonderful.
Right.
Like everything is perfect about it, and it's never perfect. There's always so much mental heavy lifting to do.
Yes.
When something like this happens in your life, and it's a major life event, obviously.
So I know that this is all going to be conjecture because we haven't spoken with her yet. But wow, so this, I don't know how old she is, but she's clearly an adult, and we're talking about the fact that her mother and birth father were obviously together, however many years ago, for this to happen, and that they only got back together because she had sought him out. That is really something. She is the ultimate matchmaker. She actually told us, I think it's 45 years. Well, that's a long time to relight a torch, for a torch to be out. 45 years.
If it's there, it's there,
Yeah.
My husband and I were broken up for 6 years between dating and then getting back together. And a lot of water under the bridge at that point. And we certainly fell back in love. We were too young in the first place when we were together. But the original attraction is still going to be there.
Even 45 years later?
Well, we're getting there. Oh, she said, by the way, in case you were wondering, it's been 45 years.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
There you go. I didn't even have to look.
I hate to say this because it sounds very Pollyanna, but, if every child of divorce and I'm making a generalization, every child of divorce hopes that their parents will get back together. I know that her birth father and birth mother, I assume, were not married.
No, she's an NPE.
Right. But, still the idea that your parents would get back together is something, I remember seeing a picture of my parents that was taken with a Polaroid years after they divorced, and I wrote underneath it in my little children's scratch, like a beautiful dream. In other words, that they might get back together. Of course, as an adult, I'm glad they never did because they were clearly not suited.
Yeah, that would have been a nightmare.
but to a child, that is sort of like the goal, like get the parents back together, the whole parent trap scenario, right?
Yeah.
But and she's kind of living that, even though she's an adult. It's just something else,
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to her when she's ready.
What a story.
Yeah, it's a great story. All right, let's move on to, this is something I found. I get a lot, adoptees get a lot of comments from people who, once again, who are not adopted that still want to cling to the blank slate theory, which was long debunked, and that because a separation happened at birth, that it shouldn't be, that you shouldn't have any trauma for it, and you should just, you're a gummy bear, and you'll forget about it. And I found this piece written by Nils J. Bergman the first, called The Neuroscience of Birth, The Case for Zero Separation. And that's not necessarily for adoptees or women, but for removing a child from its mother unless it's absolutely necessary.
Okay.
So currently, Western maternal and neonatal care are, to a large extent, based on routine separation of mother and infant. It is argued that there is no scientific rationale for this practice, and a body of new knowledge now exists that makes a case for zero separation of mother and newborn. For the infant, the promotion of zero separation is based on the need for maternal sensory inputs that regulate the physiology of the newborn. There are harmful effects of dysregulation and subsequent epigenetic changes caused by separation. Skin-to-skin contact is the antithesis to such separation. The mother's body is the biologically normal place of care, supporting better outcomes both for normal, healthy babies and for the smallest preterm infants. In the mother, there are needed neural processes that ensure enhanced reproductive fitness, including behavioral changes, e.g. bonding and protection, and improved lactation, which are supported by the practice of zero separation. Zero separation of mother and newborn should thus be maintained at all costs within health services. Traditionally, in private infant adoption, when a child is going to be adopted out or removed from the mother, they will or they used to at least, make an effort to not even have the mother see the child.
Right, yeah.
And because they don't want her to develop a connection with this baby and vice versa, which is actively causing damage to both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By the way.
Sure.
Physiologically. My biological mother told me that she wasn't supposed to see me, but she snuck in anyway. And which I think is very interesting. But yeah, and for me, when my son was born, so he was a C-section and he was a little early, and he had a little bit of distress when he was born. So he was in the NICU for 2 days. And I had a C-section that was very difficult to recover from, and I couldn't walk for 2 days. And it was so traumatizing that I couldn't just get up and go to the NICU.
I see, yeah.
And be with him. And I got somewhat hysterical.
Wow.
A little, because it was so, and sure, obviously my past has something to do with that. But it was so traumatic that I couldn't be there, and then I knew that all he knew was me.
Right.
And, he had his dad and his sister go in there, but what he knew the most was me. He knew my heartbeat, he knew my voice, he knew my smell.
Right.
So that's traumatizing. I just thought that was an interesting and something that just kind of puts everything to rest, that it's not a big deal and babies don't know the difference, because guess what? Babies know the difference.
Wow. Yeah, how interesting. This is not on this subject, but I'll tell you how this podcast affects the way I see the world, probably something that before this, I was involved with this podcast, it wouldn't have even affected me, or I would not have even noticed. But I was watching a show, which I love, Only Murders in the Building. It's really great.
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, yeah, really good show. But anyway, on a recent episode, there was this idea of whether somebody was truly somebody's father, and they took a DNA test, and the father found out he's not the father of the son, and they're both adults, okay. But he lies to his son and says, "Yes, I am your father." So that's fine. It's a plot point, whatever. But then he has a conversation with somebody and says, "Please, don't ever tell him for me." And I thought, wow. Now, mind you, the show is not over yet. The season's not over yet, and I feel like at some point they could come back around. But as soon as I heard that, I was so shocked. It's sort of played like you're doing me a favor, and doing us all a favor by keeping this secret, because he's better off not knowing. And I'm sitting there with my jaw hit the floor going, well, Julie Dixon Jackson would beg to differ.
And most of our listeners, I believe, and you.
But anyway, I'm not blaming the show, because the show is fantastic, and I have a feeling that that's not how it will be. It will end up.
It's going to come out. It's
I'm just talking totally in terms of my reaction to it, and not to the material itself.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to talk about. I came across an Australian article, adoption statistics in Australia, private infant adoption and international adoption, and what it's like. And I was struck by the difference in private infant adoptions in America or in the United States versus the rest of the world, using Australia as an example in this particular case. It's pretty amazing, and as I'm finding out so much more now about private infant adoption in the U.S. and how somewhat corrupt it is, and for profit. I should say private for-profit infant adoption is corrupt. I think. Anyway, so this article said, asking people who want kids why they don't just adopt is a common refrain, but actual adoption in Australia isn't all that common. Just 334 adoptions were finalized in 2019 to 2020 in Australia. In America, over 135,000 children were adopted or are adopted each year.
Wow.
Of non-step parent adoptions, about 59% are from the child welfare or foster system, 26% are from other countries, and only 15% are voluntarily relinquished American babies. Why are there so few adoptions in Australia? There are a few reasons for this, and we have to look at the three types of adoptions to understand why. Known child adoption means the child is already known to their adoptive parents. Think foster parents or relatives. And then there's inter-country adoption, i.e. the adoption of children from overseas. Known child adoptions are rising, but the other two are going down. The third being private infant adoption from strangers. Inter-country adoption has decreased since the 90s because of ethical concerns. To give you a sense of how few of these happen, only 37 inter-country adoptions were finalized in 2019 and 2020 in Australia.
Wow.
And local adoption has declined because we live in a different culture now compared to when there was forced adoption. There isn't a stigma that used to exist around being a single mother. There aren't as many people choosing to place a child into adoption.
True, yeah.
Yeah. Just 48 local adoptions were completed in 2019 and 2020. I mean, that's amazing compared to 135,000 a year.
Yeah, I would love to know how,
in the U.S.
I'm not a mathematician, but if you compared, say, like the populations of the countries, I'm sure it would still be a very big difference in
absolutely
as far as percentages,
Right. Meanwhile, a number of states have been introducing legislation so that there's a time frame of 2 years for having permanency plans, such as adoption, in place for children in care who can't return home. So there's been an increase in known child adoption because carers who have had kids in their care for years have been formalizing that through adoption. Adoption is open in Australia, which means birth family contact is expected until the child turns 18, meaning that is the law. Whereas in the U.S., open adoption is an option, but rarely continues as such. Oftentimes, if a biological family wants to enforce an open adoption, they need to go through legal methods because often it's very common for biological families to insist that, yes, this will be an open adoption. And then after a couple of years, they just kind of peter out and they decide they're not comfortable with that. And even though it's a legal document, supposedly, it's usually not enforced because the reason that biological mothers specifically most often relinquish is due to financial hardship, and she's not going to be able to afford a lawyer to go back in. So it's really a double-edged sword.
I only imagine how difficult it must be to navigate those relationships,
So much. There are so many TikTokers that are first mothers that are suffering because they were promised an open adoption and it's just stopped. I was watching one today where it was actually a family member that adopted her child. And she sees that child from a distance all the time because it's a family member, but the child was not told that they were adopted. So they don't know that she is their mother, and she's also not allowed to talk to him. It's unconscionable.
Very
for
messy.
Me. Yeah. And I'm not anti-adoption. Repeat, I am not anti-adoption. I just believe there needs to be massive reform, and the first thing being child-centered adoption.
Yes.
So that is that. Are we ready for a break?
I think so.
All right.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Or consider supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast. Now back to Julie and me.
All right, I have got a trenches story. I was going to say to end all trenches stories, but it's really not. It's just another trenches story.
You're just like the lifesavers and the sugar daddies making false promises.
I know. Well, it's a pretty deep trench, is all I have to say about this.
Was it the Mariana Trench?
What?
What's the trench in the Pacific that's like the deepest part of the ocean?
I have no idea. I've never heard of that.
Oh, my God. All right, well,